In today's episode, we welcome a special guest, Alexandra, the visionary behind Just the Inserts. Get ready to dive deep into the world of medical transparency and true informed consent as we explore the importance of understanding medical inserts. Plus, we'll discuss the impact of genetically modified organisms on our health and uncover the power of nature as our best pharmacy. Don't miss this eye-opening conversation filled with insights and tips for making well-informed health decisions.
The Discovery Doc Podcast, where your journey to empowered, non-toxic living begins. Join me, Dr. Cece, a doctor of nursing practice, self-proclaimed toxin tamer, and mama of four, alongside
me, Anna Kate, your medical mystery overachiever. Together, we'll uncover the latest in functional medicine, debunk health myths, tame toxins, and provide practical tips for thriving in a modern world.
Get ready to take control of your health with expert insights, raw stories, and actionable wellness strategies designed to help you and your family lead vibrant, toxin-free lives.
Let's discover together. Welcome to the Discovery Doc Podcast. This month, we're joined by Alexandra from Just the Inserts. I have been looking forward to this interview for such a long time. So I'm going to actually introduce Alexandra to y'all. She is the visionary behind Just the Inserts, an invaluable resource dedicated to empowering families with the needed information to make informed medical decisions. And you know, we are all about informed, making sure that you know everything and you're fully equipped. And Alexandra is going to take this to the next level. Her background in research has helped her become a widely trusted voice in the medical transparency and truly informed consent. So, hey, can you tell us anything else about Alexandra?
I, like you, AK, I'm so excited about this because something in my practice that I stand firm on is informed consent, true informed consent. And it really bothers me that as a practitioner, we're not taught this. These are things that we have to go look for in order to educate ourselves to then educate our patients. And I don't think enough practitioners even understand that needs to be done. And so to come across a resource like Alexandra has built, it is truly invaluable. And so we're just so thankful to have you on. And this first segment, we want to get to know you. What's your education? What's your background? How did Just the Inserts come about?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. These are my favorite types of podcasts because I can already tell. I listened to one of your interviews with Dr. Eliza Song, and I loved her book. I devoured it. I think in maybe one or two sittings. Just phenomenal resource. And so for me, I'm right up front. I'm not a medical professional. I am a mom of three. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an almost 1-year-old. And I'm just very passionate about mothers, parents, patients, everyone having informed consent. I believe it's a human right. I believe everybody should have all the information that they need to make a well-considered decision, whether you accept, delay, or decline a product. And I say constantly on podcast interviews or just interactions in my DMs that I am not here to make a decision for you. My goal is to provide the information that you need to make the decision for yourself, because a decision I make for myself might not be the most beneficial for you. You might live in a different area. You might have a different stress level than I do. You might be exposed to certain things that increase your risk, or maybe I have things that I am more aware of because I'm risk averse, or things that my children are dealing with. So I just want to go into it. If you're listening, that I am fully of the flavor that I will present the information to you. I will cite everything I say, everything I source is from .gov resources, and then do it with it what you will. Whether you accept, delay, or decline, I'm happy as long as you're informed. So just wanted to get that out from the start.
Total alignment. Total alignment.
Yes.
Okay, good.
I say this all the time, because that, and I truly stand for medical freedom, right? I do. But if you truly stand for medical freedom, then if you just put it so perfectly, you have to be able to present that information unbiased, without biased literature behind it, and then allow people to make the decision for themselves, what's right for their families, what is appropriate for their family. And something else that I hit on a lot is we are all genetically different. We are genetically different. We are different beings. Our detox pathways, yes, are different. Our exposures are different. Our methylation panels are different. And so having that information to then apply to you as a unique human is a basic right. You totally, I love that. You totally nailed it. So for those, I think that the words informed consent has been lost in translation throughout the years. Informed consent, I think, in terms of a conventional pediatric office, is you're rushed and you have a piece of paper and you sign it and you initial it and that's it. And you don't really know what's on it. So can you tell us what is your true example or definition of informed consent?
Absolutely. And this kind of weaves in with my story too. So for me, when I first started being exposed to the potential for pharmaceutical adverse reactions, I was actually active duty military. And this is not informed consent. I would go into my military doctor with some kind of ailment and they would just prescribe me something. They wouldn't even tell me what my diagnosis was. Everything was about readiness. Everything was about efficiency, getting me out the door and getting me back to doing my job. And unfortunately, I experienced adverse reactions from it. And, but it wasn't enough for me to actually dig my heels into the research. It was just one of those little light bulb moments throughout my adult career where I was starting to realize, maybe the things that are so easily available to me aren't necessarily the right things for me when you look at my life as a whole. And the pivotal moment was I was getting really, really bad, severe adult acne. So bad that I couldn't even side laying on my pillow because the acne hurt so bad on my cheek. And I struggled with that for about 4 to 5 years. And it forced me to go into this non-toxic journey and start researching, what are the products that I'm using? What are the skincare products? What are the products that I use in my laundry? What are the types of textiles that I'm using in my bed sheets and my clothes? And what type of food am I eating? And it just really helped me overhaul my preconceived notions that just because something's on the market doesn't mean that it's necessarily safe and doesn't necessarily mean it's right for me. So that kind of set the foundation for me to start just looking into things and being an informed consumer, because that's really what it's all about. And then when I became a mom, I ended up doing lots of research on bassinets and passies and bottles and all these different things and organic bamboo and yeah, exactly. But when I was presented from some certain pharmaceutical products like vaccines, I didn't really know where to start. I didn't know what to research. I didn't know who was right and who was wrong. When I went into Instagram or Google or anything like this, I had one side telling me that my baby and me were going to die if I accepted this product, and then the other side was telling me that me and my baby were going to die if we didn't accept this product. And so it was just very overwhelming to me. And so I ended up finding the inserts, which are legal documents that a manufacturer has to provide to the public. The government has to provide what they know about those products so that you can make an informed decision. There's so many important things on an insert. There are drug interactions, contraindications. These are conditions that can predispose you to increased risk for an adverse reaction. There are warning and precautions. So the black box warning that many of us are talked about, which are not just called box warnings. Those are all things that the manufacturer wants you to know about that product. Either they themselves have come to find it or it's been reported to them after the product has gone to market. So these are all really important things that as a consumer, as a patient or a parent, that you need to know about. So I just started sharing my research and I realized I wasn't alone. There were other people like me that needed a little bit more clear, transparent, credible information to make those informed decisions. And so talking about what a parent can do, when you go into a doctor's office, first know what the diagnosis is. Because like me, when I was in the military, most of the time I didn't even know what the diagnosis was. I just got a prescription and I fulfilled it and I took it and I hope it worked. I hope the symptoms went away. So first understanding what your diagnosis is, because about 20% of diagnoses are incorrect. They're misdiagnosis. And so it's important for you to clearly and accurately present the observations that you have, the anecdotal evidence that you have, so then that provider can make a better decision. If they're not with your child 24/7 like you are, they might not have the observations that you have, and you need to be able to communicate that to them so that they can make a better decision. And then once that diagnosis is agreed upon, maybe you need to have more diagnostic tests or physical exams, or maybe you need to have some more watchful waiting to make a better decision about that. So after all of that is done, your medical provider, as a service provider, will create a treatment plan, whether that's pharmaceuticals, lifestyle changes, dietary changes, procedures, they will come up with a treatment plan. And most of the time it's acute, but sometimes it's chronic, depending on what your provider is thinking mindset wise. And you get to decide to accept, delay, or decline each part of that treatment plan. For each product recommended, for each procedure, for each lifestyle change, you get to decide, am I going to accept this product and then communicate any changes to my provider on my condition, symptoms, potential adverse reactions? Am I going to delay this product? Maybe I want to wait a little bit more. Maybe I want to have a second opinion. Maybe I want to compare products, read different manufacturer inserts and see what might be a better fit for my personal situation. Or do I want to decline that product because I have a contraindication, or maybe the listed adverse reactions that are known by the manufacturer are too high of a risk for me and I don't want to risk that. Or maybe that manufacturer says that not everybody who accepts that product will be protected, or maybe that product isn't as effective as we might think in our culture, and it's just not worth the risk of the adverse reactions of that product and whatever you're trying to prevent or treat. So that's just being an informed consumer. That's the informed consent process. When you walk into a doctor's office, know that they are providing their expert advice. You're paying them for their service, for their expert advice, and then you as a consumer, you can accept, delay, or decline.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I have a question.
I want to go.
Okay, go.
Fine. Okay, I just have an answer, and then AK has a question.
Okay.
So it really, really excites me because I love that you went through all of that, because it's not just informed consent. Again, is not just signing a piece of paper and saying, you don't even know what it says, and then you sign your life away. But even for me, in terms of treatment plans that I write down what everything. I don't care if it's vitamin D, I will write down why you're taking it. So because patients, it's not, and this is where like my heart goes out to people that are not providers. It shouldn't have to be your job to research everything. That information should be given to you by the provider, but the provider is not even taught that. So I think also in all that, finding a provider who is willing to kind of go above and beyond, explain these things to you, or have their nurses come behind and explain these things to you, or write it down. Why are you taking this? What is it for? What does it do? And then, just like you said, I'll send a patient kind of on their way and I say, these are my recommendations, and this is why you would be taking it, for what and for how long. But if you come back to me 3 months later and you've done A and B, but not C and D, I will always support you. Always, because it is your choice. Now, medically, sometimes does that frustrate me if I'm like, we could be farther along if, yes, of course, but it's for the betterment of that chronic patient's conditions.
She's talking about
her. But it is always the patient's choice, always. And I think in our society, it is so lost because there's this blind trust put in providers. And that's just what we're taught from day one. We're just taught to blindly trust providers. And even as a provider, I disagree with that. I want my patients to be informed. I want them to come to me and challenge me if I need to be challenged, and question me and ask questions. And I have so many patients who are like, I'm so sorry, I'm not wanting to question you, and then they'll ask a question. I'm like, don't do that. This is your body. These are things that you're taking. I love that you're asking questions. I love that, because you teach me things too. And I just think providers are not open to questions. And that is a huge issue in all of this. Okay, that's my 2 cents. AK, what's your question?
Well, first, real quick, we need to copy and paste you for every town in America. Yeah, that's amazing. I love that.
I concur. Every small town needs a CC Brooks. So you answered you answered my question, because from a patient side, and if you've heard my story, you've heard me say this. When I first got really, really sick, I went into a rheumatologist. He marked off 6 of the 9 complications or the symptoms, and was like, well, you have lupus. And it's like, well, turns out I actually did have lupus, but I also had Lyme disease and 18 co-infections. So I knew that there was something else going on, but I was legit in his office no more than 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, your joints hurt? Oh, this is what you have. I'm like, well, can we have a discussion? So my question was, I know I can't tell you enough, but other doctors, it's like, I want to be able to talk and tell my story and tell my symptoms and help figure out because I don't know what's wrong with me. Like I am a medical mystery overachiever. Like that is my title and I wear it proudly. But going into doctors and just being typecast, or my parents have gone to the doctor and they're in their 70s. Thank goodness they don't take anything. They're not on cholesterol or statins or blood pressure or anything. But they went into an appointment and the nurse was like, I'm going to put you on these 3 medications. And my mom's like, why? She's like, well, we just do that for everybody. And she's like, do I need it? She's like, I don't know. You should talk to the doctor. Well, why are you putting me on it before I even see the doctor? Like, that blows my mind. That's the allopathic approach to things is, oh, you met this timeline. Well, here's the things that you need to be on. Well, does my health require that? Well, no, we're just going to put you on it. And it's like, well, okay, let's step back and knock
it up.
Yeah, I have a story of when I was dealing with my acne, I went to a very well-known and respected dermatologist in our area, and it took, I don't know, probably 2 months just to get an appointment with her. And I remember thinking, I remember sitting in the parking lot thinking, okay, this is it. This is what's going to help me. And I got into her office. She didn't even look at me. She walked to the computer, didn't even look at my face at all. I walked to the computer, filled out a prescription for birth control and an antibiotic, and said, you need to be on this for 4 months before I can see you and treat you.
I was just antibiotic, steroid, birth control.
Yeah.
Literally.
And I remember thinking, okay, I guess this is what I have to do. And I got into my car. Before I even got to my car, when I was paying my copay, I started crying because I couldn't believe that this was the answer. This is what you're putting me on. And especially looking in hindsight, my issues were liver and gut related. So thankfully, I think I only did the birth control for maybe a week because I was so nauseous. I couldn't handle the motion sickness, which I actually see that as a gift now. But thank goodness I didn't follow her full treatment plan because that would have destroyed what was actually going on in my body. So I think about that constantly. And I'm told by so many people where they're sitting in their provider's office and they don't even have any intellectual curiosity on doing a physical exam or asking questions. It's mind-boggling to me.
Or just linking the dots, and I'm not going to digress here too much. Don't worry. Okay. I know. But the skin's our largest organ.
Yeah.
So the skin, it's very rare unless you have true atopic dermatitis or contact dermatitis or allergic reaction. Anything else that's chronic skin related comes from inside. And that's wild to me. Anyways, we won't go down that rabbit hole,
and we've said this before, that if you are a number to your doctor, that's not the right doctor for you. Just go to she spends an hour and a half in her first appointment.
That's amazing.
You get to ask all the questions, like all the things. Someone asked me the other day, like
an hour, but yes.
Yeah, well,
sometimes an hour and a half because I'm a talker.
More than 5
Sorry
minutes.
to my staff.
Yeah, but someone asked me the other day, like, does she recommend blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, well, she will recommend what is pertinent and based on what you need. What she recommended for me is not what she's going to recommend for you, because you didn't have you may not have all the things I have. You may, but it's going to be a different protocol. But she's the detective,
Providers
and she's going to find it out.
Yeah.
If the provider is not taking the time, they are not the provider for you.
No. Everything's linked. Everything's connected. Like your history, your parents' history. I mean, I'll get a 45-year-old and I'll start the day you were born, or even ask in utero about your mom if you knew anything in utero. And because our story starts there. Anyways, we digress.
Let's go for the deep dive question.
I want one more thing. Yes. Okay. Where do you feel? So I know in your story that you felt like you weren't provided that informed consent like you should be. Looking back in kind of our history, where do you feel like that was lost?
That's a really great question. I think that there are so many little things that happened along the way, and then a lot of big things too. But I was actually just researching. Somebody had sent me a screenshot of their provider's declination form or a vaccine refusal form. And it had this very emotional story about Benjamin Franklin and how he lost his 4-year-old son. His 4-year-old son had died. And he said that the reason why his 4-year-old son had died was because of smallpox. And he regrets not getting the inoculation vaccine. The vaccine wasn't invented then, but in the provider pamphlet, that's what it said. But I just started doing research and I started realizing that actually back in that time, Benjamin Franklin was the first person to start using comparative safety whenever we're talking about a product and a disease. And I actually went back and read his information and all of his letters. It's on the National Archives. And he says that in order for a product to be deemed as safe, it can be in comparison to potential complications of disease. Now, where I think he got it wrong is the inoculations that were going on at that time were known to cause epidemics. They were known to cause smallpox epidemics. And for those that don't know, they would actually take smallpox tissue from someone that was infected with smallpox and then take somebody else, cut open their arm and then put the smallpox in. And so it was actually like taking the disease and putting it in. And that could cause epidemics. And so I think that there are so many different things throughout our history that have slowly happened that shape our perception on some of these products, and it makes us think that they're infallible when they're actually not. Mm-hmm. And when you start digging into the research and start researching the data, it, at least for me, that's what I found. It might not reflect what we're taught and how our culture perceives the industry and products.
Right. So deep dive question, what do you think is the largest factor that currently is preventing families from being presented with this unbiased informed consent, especially in the medical world?
Efficiency. I think the way that the conventional healthcare model is set up. Now, I'm not a medical professional, but I'm trained in business. My degree's in business. And I look at how the conventional healthcare system is set up right now. And as a business professional, A+. They've done a great job at efficiency. They've done a great job at streamlining. If you look at best practices and you look at order sets, the way that nurses and doctors handle patients when they're in the hospital, they've done a phenomenal job. I do think for the patient perspective, though, they have failed and they are erring in a very dangerous they're in dangerous waters in that perspective, because the average doctor's appointment is only 15 minutes and it's even less. I think it's about 10 minutes for pediatricians. There is no way that you can gain the proper informed consent for every product and every treatment that is recommended in a provider's appointment for you to be informed, for you to have a more informed decision about whatever product or treatment it is. So that's what I recommend for patient and parents. If you know that you have a well baby visit coming up, or you know that you might be struggling with Lyme or some other issue, research as much as you can. They're going to tell you not to do your own research. That's bonkers. Yeah. It's just part of being an informed consumer. If you research, I even did a reel and I talked about how many hours people research vacations and how many hours they research for their cars. And it was like in the 15 to 20 hour range. We are designed to research. We want to know what's the best product on the market. We do this for game systems. We do this for toothbrushes. We do this for so many other things. Medical products are products. We should be doing the same for that as well. So that's where I think that the system, the efficiency, the way that it's set up is not set up in a way for you to be the most informed consumer. So we have to do it ourselves.
Right. I have one tidbit there. I completely agree. And I think a challenging aspect also are ads. We are one of the only countries that allow pharmaceutical companies to directly market to the consumer. And so that, I think over time, you hear it over and over and over again that, oh, I know this name. Oh, I've heard that before. And so then when your doctor prescribes it, it's a sense of familiarity, but do you really know anything about it? No. You see the happy-go-lucky people playing on the TV and not, the possible adverse reactions on the bottom. And so that, I think, adds an extra layer. And I do find more often than not, practitioners are they're ego driven and they do not like to be challenged. And even I've been in situations myself where I have pushed that envelope because I know what I want and I'm not going to go against that. And I'm strong in it because of my background, because of my education. And I still get met with providers, with doctors, physicians who basically look at me like I'm crazy, even with my degree and education. And so I always use that. I'm like, I can't imagine then what everyday people go through.
And that's what's frustrating. And I gave this example at the end of my book because I get so many messages from medical providers. I would actually say about 60 to 70% of the people that follow me are medical providers because they feel this. They feel that frustration. They themselves can't even exercise bodily autonomy, or they themselves are shamed or silenced into submission. Because if the example that I give is, say an RN or someone administers a product to the patient, they notice that there's adverse reactions. They look up the insert, they see those adverse reactions listed. They raise some red flags. They raise some caution. And then now the medical provider is seen as disloyal to the medical community, and their intelligence is questioned. And so it's just really set up for failure the way that the current system is. And you brought up a great point. Ads are a huge issue. I think that when in one of your previous episodes, when you were talking with Dr. Song about how there are providers that say, well, all of our patients just come in and they just want a prescription. And I think that's ad driven.
100%.
I think it's because they're so exposed to it. And let's be honest too, a lot of the content that we consume outside of just those ads are also sponsored by pharmaceutical companies. A great example that I give is I was watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine one time, and it was a storyline. I can't remember what it was. And then all of a sudden in the middle of this storyline, there was an episode on mumps. And constantly throughout the episode, one of the characters said, well, I'm vaccinated, so I'm safe. Well, I'm vaccinated, so I'm safe. But then you go into read the MMR, and then it says that there's a limitation of effectiveness. So I think we're just constantly hit in so many different angles. And like I said before, I'm not saying all or nothing. I don't believe in absolutes in healthcare. I don't believe every single person vaccinated is going to have an injury. And I don't think that every person that isn't vaccinated isn't going to have a complication to a disease. I believe we just need to go into it in very objective and open-minded and intellectually curious about what the manufacturers say and what the government says. So then whenever we do come to that pivotal moment where we decide to accept delayed decline, we do it in knowledge and we do it in confidence. Because I still believe that if you do not accept a product because somebody told you not to, or because culture is telling you not to, that's still medical coercion. So I might be a little unique in that.
No, but unique is the right, because that is how you create unique healthcare. That is how you create unique healthcare. Healthcare is not meant to be a one size fits all. We talked about this on a different episode, but in terms of, let's take a medication, we can absorb that medication up to 75% difference between her and I. And that is just a medication. So if we know that medications can be absorbed differently, which makes their, efficacy different in each of us, then how does that make for any other product out there? How does that make a difference, between those two? So that's how you create unique healthcare. And I wish that more people would do that.
Yep. But we are going to continue this conversation next Thursday. So make sure that you join us back next week as we continue to talk to Alexandra. And we're going to dive in a little bit more on pregnancy. So if you've been pregnant, someone that's pregnant, you're going to be pregnant, all the things, somebody that could get pregnant, make sure that you listen to next week's episode. All right. Join the conversation. Send us your story, your question. Go to thediscoverydoc.com on our podcast page and send us a voicemail or send us a text and let us know your question so you can get involved as well.
If you're seeking a natural and targeted approach to enhance your well-being, consumable nature-derived peptides might be the perfect fit for your lifestyle and budget. Experience the incredible benefits of these powerful compounds that work harmoniously with your body to promote optimal health. Looking to build muscle, target stubborn fat, boost energy without the crash, or improve sleep quality? Peptides offer solutions for all of these concerns and more. For those interested in taking their wellness journey a step further, explore the world of injectable peptides designed exclusively for you by our experts at Discovery Wellness Group. By partnering with Discovery Wellness Group, you'll gain access to personalized plans tailored to meet your unique needs and goals. Are you ready to dive into the world of peptides and transform your life? Click the link in the podcast description or make an appointment with Discovery Wellness Group today. The power to optimize your well-being is just a click or a call away.
Let's shift our focus to our toxin tamer feature. So this month we are talking all about GMOs.
Oh, that's so necessary.
Hey, we want to make sure that we get your attention.
That you're listening.
This week we're going to talk about what the heck is a GMO?
So we were just talking about this off mic, but everyone sees the term GMO, non-GMO, right? But do we actually know what that means? Like the depths of it. So that's what we want to go into. It's a very common phrase, but what actually is it?
Okay, so GMO stands for genetically modified organism. Now, I'm of the belief, and you can tell me if this is wrong or not, that we like to select and breed plants for the most fruit production, pest resistance, kind of all of those things. And that naturally happens during breeding, but that takes a long, long time. We do it with our pets. We breed for specific
Flowers.
things. Yeah. So not that your pet is GMO, but where is the line between natural selection and breeding in that
and
way?
And like cross-pollination.
Right.
Is a good example.
And genetically modified.
Yes. So genetically modified organisms are a plant, animal, or microorganism that has had its genetic material, so DNA, changed using technology. I think that's the biggest differing factor, is that we're using technology to alter that DNA. And it involves modification of the DNA, whether that is a transfer of specific DNA from one organism to the next, but it's also called genetic engineering. So we're not talking about a natural process. We're talking about a scientific process that includes changing those genes. And essentially, it allows scientists to select one specific gene and to implant, and it avoids introducing other genes with maybe undesirable traits. Genetic engineering also helps to speed up the process of creating new foods with desirable traits.
So
just playing God over here with food is what's
I want to ask this question before we get into too deep: are GMO, genetically modified organisms, and bioengineered foods, are they different? Are they interchangeable? Is it the same thing? Is it different?
That's a great question. So genetically modified organisms, again, is changing the DNA. So it's taking the natural seed of the plant, let's say, or of the crop, and changing the genetics and replanting it so that it could ward off pesticides easier, something like that. When we're talking about bioengineered food, totally different subject, which I think we should talk about that on a different episode. So change. Yes.
Yeah, just want to clarify.
But absolutely,
so those are two different
completely different. Lab grown, still grown in nature, just modified its genetic code. Yeah. But bioengineered is truly lab grown. So we'll talk. Yeah, that's a good one to talk about.
We'll clarify that in a little bit.
We will. But that genome, to go a little bit further in that genome editing is a newer method that involves adding, removing, or changing the DNA of a plant or animal in a targeted way. So it's for a purpose, right? It's for the possible benefits of that. Genetic engineering can include a more nutrient-dense food, which asterisk there. We'll talk about that later. A tastier food, asterisk there. We'll talk about that later too. Or disease and drought resistant. So plants that require fewer environmental resources, such as water or fertilizer, we can actually change that genetic composition to improve the growth rate and success of those plants. We can change them in ways that we actually need to use less pesticides because they're more resistant. It can increase the supply of food and reduce costs and increase the shelf life of these foods. You can grow them faster.
And they delay. So part of that is they delay the ripening process. So you can pick them sooner, get them in transit. They can ripen over transit. By the time they get to your grocery store, they're ready to go. Like for a normal just plant, that's really hard to do because they're meant to spoil. They're meant to go through the growth and decomposition process. That's what they're designed to do. So that we're finagling that in the middle with science and lengthening that. So also your banana, your breakfast this morning is not a real banana. Did you know that?
Absolutely. I know that. Yes. There are better versions. I'll talk about that inside. Let AK finish.
Okay. But that's one that everyone is exposed to. Yeah. The bananas that we grew up eating are not where the banana actually originated from. So, and
real in nature bananas are.
Yeah. And you can't grow a banana from you can't peel a banana and peel the seeds off. You know, those stringy things, those are the seeds. Did you know that? Mm-hmm. So you can't plant that and create a banana tree. They're not sterile. No,
that's a good word. Yeah. You can't reproduce.
So you can't take a banana and grow it like you could like an organic apple seed or a pineapple or something.
Avocado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and those all take a really long time to grow. So.
A very long time. I think another a good one, a positive one to mention, because, in terms of when we're genetically modifying foods, there are good intentions behind some of that, right? And one is if we are making a food with more of a desirable trait, let's say. So potatoes that produce less of cancer-causing substances when fried, we fry them at high temperature. That is cool. That could be a positive, you know? Trying to see the positive of this.
Yeah, for all your French fry needs.
Exactly. So those are the ways that genetically modifying foods can impact our supply. I think AK had the greatest point, which is really it's consumer. It is based on the fact that we are so far removed from our local farms that we need to be able to pick things in other countries and have them make it to our store. And imagine all the different steps that takes to get to our store for then us as a consumer to go buy, and it's not bad by the time we purchase it. And then we get home and it doesn't turn bad, you know, within 2 days of purchasing it. You'll notice that difference if you do switch. Like when we first switched to more of local produce and our farmers, we were like, holy moly, if we aren't eating these berries or these things within a day, 2 days, their mold is growing on them. And at first you're annoyed, but then you're like, wait, hold the phone. Because this is actually how food is meant to be. And this is because there aren't these added ingredients, there aren't these pesticides, organic, you know, just herbicides, or it's not genetically modified to improve the shelf life. And hey, it's going bad like nature intended it to.
Yeah, and it's not treated with a gas from Timbuktu to here.
Right, exactly. So we are going to go through this whole month, kind of just build on what GMOs are, where we can find them, what you can do to avoid them, and why we should know this information as well. So stay tuned throughout this month to learn more about all things engineering foods, genetically engineering foods.
Genetically modified, because we're not talking about
modified.
bioengineered foods.
You're right. Those are different
confusing
things. Okay. Stay tuned for all things
genetically modified. On this month's medical myth busting, this week we are going to talk about nature is our best pharmacy. Is that true?
Yes. So, big disclaimer here. I firmly believe that acute care has a time and a place, right? And it is life-saving. And antibiotics and more acute interventions can absolutely be life-saving. So this is not to take anything away from emergent care, urgent care, that 110% can be life-saving. But if we think about more chronic of situations, then bringing us back to nature, bringing us back to kind of the natural rhythm of our body and grounding and healing ourselves, then I firmly believe that nature can contribute to our healing, sometimes way more than medications in the long run, right? Not for acute care. Right. So big disclaimer there.
A nap and a snack go a really long way.
A nap and a snack, just give me, I tell Will that all the time. Let me rest and give me food and I'll be so happy.
Make sure I'm hydrated, make sure I'm nourished, and give me a nap.
Yes.
And all will be right.
Make sure I'm filling my cup, make sure I'm grounding myself, making sure my central nervous system is calm. Like those very minimal things go a long way. So I think my greatest example is that it's not even other modalities, which we'll get into in a second, but it is making sure that our central nervous system is cool, calm, collected. We cannot heal no matter what medication, supplement, natural agent we are taking if our central nervous system is on edge, if we're constantly in fight or flight, if our cortisol is constantly off the charts. We need to learn how to get back to ourselves and really ground that so that we are receptive of healing. And so that is the biggest factor in terms of when I say that nature can be, you know, our best pharmacy, I really mean you. You can be your best pharmacy, and being outside and being in sunlight and just having just that feeling. Yeah. You can't see me, but you know,
if you're watching us on YouTube, you
can. So that's the biggest part. Now there absolutely are natural remedies that have proven in literature to be just as effective as medications. So those are some things I want to hit on. Medical science has shown us that, for example, that heart disease patients who simply go on a Mediterranean diet reduce their risk of future heart attacks and other cardiac related deaths by up to 70%. That's just a diet change. That's just a diet change. So Mediterranean diet is just good high fats, salmon, fatty fish, olive oil. Those good fats are protective for our cardiovascular system. By contrast, cholesterol lowering medications in the United States, heart patients, cost heart patients nearly $14 billion per year and lower the risk of current heart problems by only 35%.
Mm-hmm.
So we have someone who can make I don't want to say simple because it can be very drastic for some people to make that dietary change, but we have some people who in literature and studies, it has shown us to reduce that risk by 70% with a dietary change versus a medication that will reduce that risk by 35%.
Also, fun fact, and I need to get the citation on this, but using a traditional mouthwash can have cardiac effects.
Mm-hmm.
So switch to the Mediterranean diet, quit using mouthwash, and there you go. But who knew that?
Yeah.
Is that in the insert that using this mouthwash will cause cardiac events or
can
cause increased opportunity for cardiac events?
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't know that. Did you? Tell us if you do.
Mouthwash.
Yeah. Someone you use every day, twice a day, if not. But it makes sense because your oral cavity is the most arguably sublingual medications are absorbed so highly right directly into the bloodstream. So mouthwash, you're swishing around, absorbing those agents too directly into the bloodstream. Makes sense in my head. A second good example is that milled rice that's fermented with red yeast, i.e. red yeast rice, is wonderful and has been used as an herbal health remedy for over 2,000 years in Eastern Asia and is effective in lowering LDLs in the blood by over 25%. So lowering kind of quote the bad cholesterol or the kids that are blocking up the hallways.
Yeah, we make sure we have enough buses and we're reducing the kids that need to be picked up.
By over 25%. A month's supply of red yeast rice, depending on the brand, can cost you anywhere from $25 to $45, which is very similar in cost to the medication. So it's a great natural alternative that is equally as effective at lowering those LDLs, and we mitigate the possible adverse effects from things like statins by choosing those natural agents.
And make sure you're getting our monthly newsletter because I will make sure that this is linked in that monthly newsletter so you can have a direct link to the one that she likes.
Yeah, I do. There's a couple brands that I like better than others. Obviously, not every supplement company is created equally in dosages and ingredients and all those things. So absolutely.
But February newsletter, that link will be in there.
Check it out. The last example that I like is a couple wildfire, rapid fire, wildfires. Guys,
California.
Yes, that was my brain going there.
Flooded North Carolina, we haven't forgot about you either.
No, I know. Progesterone from wild yam. Wild yams are a wonderful source of bioavailable progesterone. I use it as a cream in some of my patients. And then compounded progesterone also comes from wild yam instead of synthetic versions. Curcumin. That made me think of the turmeric. Curcumin is a comparable COX-2 inhibitor. Or NSAID to Vioxx, an anti-inflammatory drug. There are so many different natural agents that we can compare the effectiveness to medications. So yes, when we talk about nature being our best pharmacy, I understand that convenient solutions kind of lead to a so-called blind obedience to doctors and us practitioners who just prescribe synthetic chemicals and turn our nose up to natural solutions because that's what we've been taught. But and why? If you ask the why there, it's quote, because there's no research, because there's lack of research supporting this natural agent.
We've been using it for hundreds of years, but there's no research.
Thousands of years. So that's a massive important factor here is that these remedies have been utilized for thousands of years. They've existed long before our current medications have been around. So that means that natural experimental selection behind these remedies from people that have been using them for thousands of years has occurred. Now, I understand that that is not something that is looked upon as a positive in our current medical system, but why not? If there have been cultures that have been using these remedies for thousands of years, why can't we build off of that to create more modern day studies that then the medical field will stand upon? That's my point there.
can you tell us a little bit more about wild yam, because it is quote unquote trending right now? It is, like, I see it everywhere.
Yeah. So wild yam is a wonderful so wild yam, we can
is it like a sweet potato yam?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We can extract different proteins from it, or sterols. They're called plant sterols. And so we derive those plant sterols from the wild yam. And those certain plant sterols, in terms of wild yam specifically, can help our body process and make more progesterone. And so if we take those plant sterols and we turn it, I don't do this myself, but companies do it, turn it into a cream and use those proteins as a cream, one little pea size of that cream can actually equate to 20 milligrams of progesterone. And so we're using those plant-derived little proteins to put that cream on our skin to absorb it into the blood, which can then increase our blood's progesterone, so to speak, our body's progesterone. And I can utilize it to help women more naturally with their cycles or with fertility, rather than using a synthetic progesterone that is, again, synthetically derived in a lab or molecular made. And so our body absorbs it much better. It looks like it's our own. It looks like we are making this, like we can break it down easier. We can absorb it easier. But yeah, it's highly concentrated.
Yeah. So here's a disclaimer for that, because wild yam is being marketed as a face cream for anti-aging.
Oh yeah.
So if you don't need the progesterone, or
you can't increase it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a 20-year-old and you're putting wild yam on your face, like, get your hormones checked, because you're about to do something you don't want to do.
Yeah, they should absolutely be disclosing that.
Yeah. So, but they're not. So that's why I want to cover it up. It's great for those that need it. If you're under 40.
And they might be denaturing the protein. So I'd have to look more into that. With the face creams that they're saying is anti-aging, it might be because progesterone is a wonderful hormone that, if we think of postmenopausal women, and that you could throw that into the quote anti-aging, sense of things. So I don't know the content of progesterone in the face creams that are viral right now. They might be denatured in the process.
So what would be the benefit of wild yam?
The micronutrients.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd have to look into that.
Okay. So just something to consider as you're seeing this all over social media. Wild yam this, wild yam that. Well, depends on if you actually need it and what's in it and why. Don't just hop on it because it's trendy and buy it. Don't be forced to buy it. But if you need it, there's a great alternative to progesterone. I know lots of people have been putting, like, you put it on your
thin skin, inner forearm. It's wonderful. So yes, I do think there are, for the most part, we can find most medications are derived from natural agents, even antibiotics. You know what I mean? We can trace them back to nature. So it's silly to say that nature is not our best pharmacy when a lot of our even current medical medications are derived from natural agents. So,
and I will be making my own fire cider this year because I bought some. And when I had that really bad cough, like, I called her and she was like, "You don't sound good."
No, she's like terrible. She sounded terrible.
Yeah. But that helped reduce the cough, which is all kinds of cool things. So I will test that out. And then if you're on my insider list, I'll send you the recipe.
Absolutely. And stay tuned for our next episode of Medical Myth Busting and hear Anna Kate mispronounce a word. Until next time, let's discover together.
We hope this episode with Alexandra has shed light on the significance of true informed consent and the potential benefits of nature in healing. Join us next time as we continue to uncover the truth behind medical myths and explore the fascinating world of health and wellness. Thank you for listening, and remember, knowledge is power when it comes to making the best choices for your health. Stay tuned and keep questioning. Your well-being depends on it.
Hold your horses. Before we ride off into the sunset, let's take a moment for a friendly disclaimer. The information shared on this podcast is for general informational and entertainment purposes only. While we strive to provide accurate and helpful information, we're not here to replace your trusty healthcare provider or doctor. Consider us your Discovery Doc trailblazers, sharing our knowledge and experiences as we journey forward towards wellness. However, remember to always consult with a qualified medical professional before taking any actions based on the content of this episode. Like the Wild West adventure, this disclaimer may change occasionally, so be sure to check back for updates. Stay healthy, stay adventurous, and keep blazing trails with the Discovery Doc.